Good evening, everyone. My name is John Tate. I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to, of course, acknowledge that we are gathered here on Treaty 1 territory. That is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Innuit, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. So there's some fortuitous timing here tonight because I believe 5 years to the day we were gathered here to celebrate, or 4 years to the day, we were gathered here to celebrate the launch of another book by Harriet Zaidman, Second Chances. So it's delightful to see absolutely so many people here tonight, once again, to celebrate her latest book, What Friends Are For. We're so thrilled that you could be here tonight, both in person and online. I am keenly aware no one is here to listen to me speak, so rest assured I will be clearing off momentarily. But I did just want to express our sincere gratitude to Heritage House for publishing this book and for making this evening a possibility, and for all the incredible people that have come on board to host tonight and participate as well. So just to let you know how the evening will go, there will be a reading from Harriet, and that'll be followed by a conversation, which will take place in these chairs to my left between Shelagh Rogers and Harriet. Following that, there'll be presentations from two very special guest speakers, Ellen Kruger and Dr. Suzanne Newman, which will take place up here. And then following that, presuming that time permits, we will then move along to a Q&A. So please do allow your questions to percolate over the course of the evening. When it comes time for the Q&A, I will approach you with this microphone in a non-threatening manner to ensure that all your questions are audible to those watching at home. And I'll be back at the end with the most important part of the evening, book signing procedure, so please do stand by for that. But right now, I have the great pleasure of introducing all the participants this evening. Ellen Kruger is a former chair and spokesperson for the Manitoba Coalition for Reproductive Choice, and Dr. Suzanne Newman, abortion provider and former medical director of James Morgentaler Clinic. A little bit about your host for the evening. Upon announcing Shelagh Rogers was stepping down from the CBC, a publicist added an extra 0 to 43 years Shelagh worked there, so it became Shelagh Rogers, who's been at the CBC for 430 years. Through those centuries, she hosted current affairs shows, arts programs, and worked with legendary colleagues such as her mentor and friend, Peter Zosky. In 2011, Shelagh was inducted into the Order of Canada. Also that year, she was named an honorary witness for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. She is the inaugural recipient of the Margaret Trudeau Award for Mental Health Advocacy and was the 2022 Simmons Medalist. She is a citizen of the Manitoba Métis Federation. In 2008, Shelagh co-founded a national radio program devoted to writing in Canada called The Next Chapter. It often featured YA novels. After reading Harriet Zaidman's What Friends Are For, she finds herself wishing she still had a radio show so she could speak with Harriet about this chewy YA novel. But she is delighted to be able to speak with her as part of McNally Robinson's rich pageant of live events. We slipped her $10 for that. She is the queen of conversation and the doyen of discussion, so we are thrilled to have her in the driver's seat. Our very special guest this evening is, of course, Harriet Zaidman, an award-winning writer who applies extensive research to find the voice and detail necessary to animate her novels. She has always been interested in how important historical events impacted people and how we can learn from these experiences. Her middle grade novel, City on Strike, was set during the turbulent times of the Winnipeg General Strike of 1919. Second Chances, written for young adults, was the recipient of the Jeffrey Bilson Award for Historical Fiction for Young People, and tells the story of young people stricken during the polio epidemics of the 1950s. A former teacher librarian, Harriet lives in Winnipeg and is the children's book columnist for the Winnipeg Free Press. Her latest book, which has not left our bestseller list since the day it hit our shelves, is What Friends Are For. Please give Harriet a raucous round of applause.
Yeah, you really came. And there are so many people online as well, including Liz from Kingston, who said I would do it, a little shout out. There's Winnipeg history in this room. There's a bit of CBC history too. Red Sharon is in the audience this evening. And Harriet, I'm delighted you convened this gathering and brought us all together to celebrate what friends are for. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's in the book, you could read a little bit for us. Would that be okay?
Sure. So I'll set it up.
Of course,
This is my main character's name is Leesa, and she has life is great. She's 15 and she's just happy. And one thing she's happy about is the fact that the boy is paying attention to her. And this boy turns out to be a monster. And
I have a different word for him actually.
Yeah. And she's become pregnant and she doesn't know what to do, and she's decides she hasn't told anyone. She has to confide it in someone. Finally, she comes from a family where her mother is marching against the opening of the Morgentaler Clinic, and she's marched there too. Her friend Jenny is extremely religious and very serious about opposing this clinic's opening, but she has to tell someone, and they're driving together, and this is what happens. Her voice came out low and flat.
Okay.
No, who's calling me who isn't here?
A sit-down comedian.
Her voice came out low and flat. Jenny, I have to tell you something. Jenny glanced at her, then turned her eyes back to the road. She turned right on McGregor Street, cruising until she stopped at the red light on Mountain Avenue. What's up? Still moping about Kevin? Leesa took in a breath, fixed her eyes on the road, and said, Kevin raped me. The light turned green. Jenny stepped too hard on the gas. The car lurched, and she stomped on the brake. The driver behind honked. Quickly, Jenny checked her rear view and side mirrors and pulled the car into a grocery store parking lot. He what? But before Jenny could express her incredulity or ask for details, Leesa told her, I'm pregnant. The next few minutes seemed to stretch on for hours as the impact of Leesa's statement hit them both. Jenny's eyes filled with tears. She reached out to hold her friend's hand, a gesture Leesa appreciated, even though it did little to take away the numbness inside her. In a dull voice, she told Jenny what happened. Around them, shoppers passed by, laden with bags or pushing grocery carts. Kids trailed their parents, nagging for treats from the bags. Families loaded their trunks with the groceries and drove away. Leesa watched it all, as if those people were extras in a movie. What did your parents say? Jenny choked out. I mean, did you tell them how it happened? No, Leesa said almost in a whisper. She shook her head. I haven't told them anything, nothing at all. She turned to her friend. And you can't tell them. I have to figure this out. What do you mean? You're going to have a baby. Jenny's face turned red and her voice rose higher. Your parents won't be mad after a while, will they? It's not your fault. Well, I mean, she faltered and shook her head. No, don't worry about it. They'll love to have a baby in the house. They'll help you take care of it. She grew animated and squeezed Lisa's hand harder. It'll be like having a big little sister. I'll help you too. Her eyes grew wide with imagining. I'll play with it so you can go out sometimes. You'll see. She began to rub Lisa's hand vigorously. Your mom and dad will make wonderful grandparents. What names will they call themselves? Leesa pulled her hand back and shook her head over and over. This is awful, Jenny. I don't know how to be a mother. She began to cry. I don't want to have his baby. I don't want to get married. What am I going to do? Her tears became sobs. Jenny went beside her. I don't want to be a mother. You have to tell them, Jenny urged. Did you go to the doctor? How do you know? I didn't. I just know, she whispered. You have to go to a doctor. You have to be healthy for your baby. Leesa slumped in the passenger seat. She lowered her eyes to the glove compartment. Tears rolled down her cheeks. A baby, she whispered, even more quietly. It's crazy. It doesn't seem real. The breeze outside the car had picked up. A clear plastic bag tumbled across the hood on its endless journey. Jenny reached into her jeans, pulled out a tissue, and blew her nose. It was meant to be, Leesa. Everything happens for a reason. I'm sure of that. Leesa couldn't believe what she was hearing. What are you talking about? He raped me. I didn't ask for that. Her throat tightened as her agitation increased. I thought we were going to go out together to like each other. I thought he liked me. I didn't ask to get pregnant. Jenny shook her head back and forth several times, tears still rolling. That's what I've learned, that we're here for a reason, that our lives aren't our own. I'm sure it's true. A slight smile grew on the corners of her mouth as she gazed out the windshield. I'll be like an auntie, but I'll be a mother. I don't want to. Jenny turned, her eyes flashing. You wouldn't. No, no. Leesa fought to get the words out. More tears trickled down her cheeks. I was hoping it might go away. I thought maybe it wouldn't stick. What am I gonna do? She wrapped her arms around herself and sobbed. I'm a kid, Jenny. I don't want to have a baby. She covered her face with her hands and wept until she ran out of tears.
That is the velocity with which the story moves. What was the genesis of this novel?
Well, it was what's happening in the US, and I just thought, this is terrible.
Because this is set in 1983.
This is set in 1983, and I realized that people have forgotten. Young people don't know what women used to do, what young women used to go through. When I was a kid, you always heard about the term unwed mothers, and there were always whispers of someone, girls disappeared for a year or disappeared completely. Or a couple times, there were a couple examples when I went to school of girls getting married far too young. And then I thought, not only did they was in that situation, but I realized that everybody's got this. Most people have this somewhere in their family history, something like this. And I recalled a story that my father told me, and I was just maybe 10 years old or something, and I may have read something in the newspaper with the word abortion in it and asked about it. And my father said that his mother had had 2 abortions and nearly died from one. And so apparently, because not only was birth control, abortion was illegal, and birth control was also illegal, and they were a family, had already had 4 children and couldn't feed them. It was the 1920s, which were not great for ordinary working people. They, maybe for the rich they were great, but they weren't roaring for ordinary working people. And what do you do? And apparently she nearly bled to death. They lived in the North End where there was a hospital close by, and she walked there for help and was rebuffed and told this is her problem, she caused it, and she should suffer the consequences. And then I thought, how many other women died? I mean, we know that women died, and or were rendered, damaged forever. Yeah. So millions of women. So I thought, let's make a story about this.
Set the scene. It's 1983, and the clinic is about to open. The abortion clinic is about to open. What's going on? And you do. I know you love research. I feel like I'm interrupting your research by doing this interview with you. But tell us what you learned. And you were here, right? You were in Winnipeg.
I was in Winnipeg, but I have to say I was not. I was only. I wasn't hugely. I read it about it and all this. Yeah. And I thought about it, but I was raising my kids and I didn't think about it. But all these people here were busy working hard to support the clinic and to support women's rights. So many people. So I thought, that's what was going on. And it was a tumultuous time. There certainly was. It was a huge news item.
Then there are characters, but there would have been people like Leesa's mother, who is an ardent anti-abortion activist. And she's had miscarriages. She has a very complex character. What was it like for you to create this character, all the things that are fighting inside her mother as well?
Well, she's a woman who wanted to be a mother, and at some point thought she might not be a mother because she lost babies. And so she felt that she had to give back to the community in that way. She's also conflicted because she's happy. She's been happy to carry on the role of being a homemaker and a mother at home and all this, but she has personal objectives. So she's a typical person. like who's got a lot going on with her. And it conflicts, and she loves her husband and her husband loves her, but they've come to a point where there's a clash, and how will that clash resolve itself?
She wants to work.
She wants to work.
And she wants to go back and do what she was trained to do.
And I did that. I took her on the basis of several women I knew from when I was like in my teen years and things like that, where the mothers were saying to their husbands, I want to go out and do something for myself, and I want to feel more productive. And so I just based it on women I know who said those things.
You called Kevin, the young boy that raped Leesa, a monster. What was it like to create that character for you?
It wasn't that hard.
Oh,
It wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
You know, there are people who have ulterior motives, you know, to be nice and to groom you, and which is what he does. He grooms her, and he's willing to buy his time. And there are people who have chameleon-like personalities, and then they choose their moment.
You chose an amazing moment to read because Jenny and Leesa are besties.
Yeah.
And they do anything for each other. But all of a sudden we see something shifting.
Yeah.
What's at stake for their friendship at that point?
Well, it's you know, are you going to toe the line? We've been besties, and we've been dedicated to the same cause. And for you to consider any other way of thinking about this pregnancy would shatter Jenny. Jenny is very sincere. She is a very sincere person, and I had a few acquaintances when I was growing up with really sincere, religious, committed kids, and I sort of based it on her.
When you told people you were writing a book about abortion, what did they say to you?
I got a lot of stories about abortions.
Yeah,
So,
okay, yeah.
People from their families told me stories about their own, or their mothers, or their sisters, and what they did in order to end a pregnancy that they could not continue. That it was wrong for them to have a child at that time. So that's what happened. I was like, oh, blown away over and over and over. Like I didn't think of it. You know, it's so yeah.
There's a tension that you create among the friends, including Leesa and Jenny, but also between her mother, who doesn't know, right? Why do you keep her in the dark?
Because she doesn't want to disappoint her mother. She loves her mother, and she doesn't want to disappoint her. And what it would shatter her, and she doesn't know what the repercussions would be among these people who she doesn't really like, the anti-abortion. She doesn't really like them that much. She's part of that community, but she doesn't really like them that much. And what will happen to her? And she doesn't want to be anything other than a kid. It will thrust her into a different stage of life that she knows she's not ready for.
And then her baby will be deemed illegitimate,
which
is just such a lovely
right. Yeah.
Right? Isn't that awful? And out of wedlock. Yeah, another one.
Yeah.
I think you had, there was a lot of energy as you pursued this topic, but you also included real people in your story, and some of them are with us this evening. And just as I look at the clock, just to keep things going, we do have two very special guests with us, and they both have statements that they're going to read to us from the podium. So I wonder, Ellen, would you like to join us first of all? This is Ellen Kruger, everybody.
Thank you. What a pleasure it is to be here and enjoy this wonderful crowd with the wonderful Harriet and Shelagh. I entitled my remarks, "How did we ever get a community-based abortion services in Winnipeg?" Harriet has written such an insightful, warm, and excellent historical novel about Leesa, and we already know a little bit about her. And the setting, 1983. Of course, she's traumatized and conflicted after the assault about her path forward. Karen Wells says on the book's cover, "For all of you who think the story about abortion is too tough for teenagers, think again. Knowledge is power." Before 1969, both birth control and abortion were illegal in Canada. By 1966, birth control was available and fairly widely prescribed by doctors. When I asked for a prescription for birth control, I got one. I had no idea it was illegal, nor did the doctor tell me. So it was fairly common then in 1966. However, legal abortion was not available, or if it happened, it was called a DNC on the books. Under the first Trudeau government in 1969, birth control was legalized and abortion allowed under restrictive conditions. That is, if approved by a therapeutic abortion committee of 3 doctors and performed in a hospital. All 3 doctors had to agree that continuation of the woman's pregnancy would endanger her life or her health. Hospitals were not required to set up a committee, however, so initially very few did. In Winnipeg, only 2 hospitals had committees. In rural areas, if women even knew that abortions was available, they had to find a sympathetic doctor, travel to the city, take time away from school, work, or family responsibilities. And abortions are safest if performed before 12 weeks gestation. The committee just caused terrible delays. In 1973, we go back a bit, 2 Winnipeg women, Brenda Brand and Jan Ellis, founded Pregnancy Information Service. It was a tiny volunteer phone line that offered information and referral on birth control and abortion services. In the early years, it operated out of the Women's Liberation Office and later out of Clinic Community Health Center, with a roster of trained volunteers. Referrals for abortion went to the few doctors who would accept them and take the request to the abortion committee. Or else, women had to travel to the one doctor in Grand Forks or to New York. That's all we knew. In 1981, the Board of Pregnancy Information Services developed and opened women's health clinic. So this was a situation in late 1981 when I received a call at work from Henry Morgentaler. Hi, Ellen, it's Henry Morgentaler. Remember me? Of course I did. We had met in 73 or 74 in Toronto at the founding meeting of the Canadian Abortion Rights Action League. He said, you have an NDP government with a pro-choice policy, and I think Winnipeg would be a good place to open a clinic. Will you help me? I knew better than he did that we'd have a big fight on our hands. I also knew that the women's movement would take up the challenge. Our Winnipeg women's movement had formed a highly effective coalition to win family law reform in 1977. Forming a broad coalition seemed the best way forward to win this next fight. We formed the Coalition for Reproductive Choice, which eventually had nearly 30 member organizations who fought with us. The coalition had decided that we would not form support picket lines when the clinic opened, because we wanted to reduce the amount of commotion that women would encounter when they chose to enter the clinic. We had plans for a quiet and confidential opening. Not Henry. He announced it publicly as his and our goal was to challenge the harmful abortion law. On the opening day, the anti-choice picketers showed up in great numbers. However, dozens of women we had never met carrying supportive signs came out of their homes to defend the clinic. It was just this groundswell of Winnipeg women. Henry had an uncanny sense for political timing. A doctor performing abortions in a freestanding clinic without utilizing the therapeutic abortion committee system was illegal. Every time the police raided the clinic, arresting staff, arresting volunteers and patients, hundreds of people showed up at the legislative buildings to protest, demanding charges be dropped and the decision for abortion to be solely made between a woman and her doctor. Henry opened clinics in Toronto and Vancouver and later in Halifax. The partnership between Dr. Henry Morgentaler and the women in Winnipeg paved the way for the Women's Health Clinic to be the main provider of abortion services in Manitoba today. I think Suzanne may go on from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
That you've given us, and this is very much something that comes through in your story as well. The fact that poor Leesa, showing my colors here, has to go to 3 doctors to get the permission at 15.
Right.
Wow, what a nightmare.
How frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah, discouraging.
And so she's so isolated.
Yeah,
as
isolated.
well.
That's
You captured that
Yeah.
so well. You do have the real person in your novel, and the real person is here this evening. In the novel, Suzanne Newman isn't a doctor yet. She's working at the clinic as a volunteer.
I just want to say, we also have another real person here who is
Oh,
Lynn.
I think we have a
Lynn
few more
Croker.
real people.
But, okay, all right.
Okay. But who else do we have?
Lynn Croker, the nurse.
My goodness,
Where are
Lynn.
you, Lynn? There you are.
Oh,
Back there.
wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so I mentioned her in the novel, so, okay.
Okay, well, Dr. Suzanne Newman, would you like to come to the podium?
Lynn, could you stand up for a sec? Where are you? Yes, thank you. Wonderful. We've come a long way from Lisa's role in 1983, that is for sure. But Lisa's story brings to life what women had to navigate to get these basic and often life-saving services. I've been invited to speak tonight about my own involvement in the Morgenthaler Clinic and how it shaped my life. Like Lisa, my life changed in March of 1983. Out walking with my two youngest kids, ages 3 and 5, we turned the corner onto Gordon Avenue to be startled by a noisy crowd surrounding the small stucco house where Henry Morgenthaler had opened his new clinic. This might have been the very day that Lisa and Jenny and their moms were there too. I pulled my kids through the mob and we pushed our way up the steps. As the staff, including Lynn, pulled us into safety, so began my long involvement with the very clinic that Lisa and her mother tried to shut down. I volunteered at the clinic for whatever was needed, as an escort to bring clients in and out of the building through lines of jeering or praying anti-choice crowds. I acted as a support person for women in the procedure room, and I soon became a spokesperson for the clinic and for Henry Morgenthaler. I was at the front desk on the very day that the police swarmed the clinic, the day that Lisa came for her abortion. Patients, one in the middle of her procedure, were taken away, sobbing and terrified. Lisa somehow managed to leave unnoticed, but she would have been one of the lucky ones. Not one of these women was there because of political ideology. Their presence at the clinic was for the most private and personal of reasons, but neither police nor media cared. All the staff were arrested, and we were charged with conspiracy to procure abortions. We remained in jail for 3 days, and this outrage galvanized support across the country and certainly politicized me. In all, the clinic was raided 4 times, instruments and equipment seized, preventing us from providing abortions. Instead, we provided information and referrals for hospital procedures, and we drove women to North Dakota to access abortion care. We became a focal point for the movement across the entire country. So I, meanwhile, was beginning to find my path and my voice. The idea that I could become a doctor and abortion provider took hold in 1986. In January of 1988, I applied to medical school, and 3 weeks later, the Supreme Court ruling, which Henry Morgenthaler started in motion 20 years earlier, in which so many of us, as Ellen talks about, had been working towards, this ruling was announced. The landmark decision finally struck down the country's abortion law as unconstitutional, a tremendous victory for the women of Canada. But now, having been accepted into medical school, I had to make the not so easy decision to leave the clinic and start on this path of my own. Once again, Henry Morgenthaler was my mentor, along with other abortion providers here in Winnipeg. My own career as a doctor spanned 30 years, 20 of which were at Mount Carmel Clinic, where I had a full family practice, including both abortions and obstetrics. There were many hurdles and challenges along the way, and there's more work yet to be done, considering the very real possibilities of restricted access as we now see in the US. Who has abortions? Well, 1 in 3 Canadian women will have had an abortion at some time in their reproductive lives. I have provided abortions for women of all ages, from preteen girls to women in their mid-50s, for transgender people, for those who already have children and for those who don't, for women who are doctors, nurses, lawyers, judges, police officers, clergy, teachers, politicians, for adherents of many religions and of all political persuasions. I have provided abortions for women who are pro-choice and for those who have advocated publicly against abortion, who feel that abortion is morally repugnant, but somehow appropriate in their own situation. In short, for thousands of people who find themselves pregnant and for whatever reason cannot continue with their pregnancy. I've been enormously proud to have been part of this movement, which has made it possible for women and for young girls like Leesa to choose their futures, to have safe, legal, accessible, and timely abortions if that's their choice, without stigma, guilt, or shame. I feel both privileged and grateful to have had a part in providing this vital service, along with compassionate and skilled staff at each of the facilities I've worked at. And some of these wonderful people are here tonight. I thank you, Harriet, for having written this excellent book and for giving me the opportunity to talk about some of my own story. A story that was shaped by the pro-choice movement of the early 1980s and inspired by young women like Leesa, whom I met along the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like that's amazing what she said, just sums it up. That people should have the right to chart their own futures, chart their own lives, and what it's medical care that should be accessible and safe, and should not be a matter of shame. It should be available to them, and it's exactly what it should be. And for anyone who is ideologically opposed to the issue of having an abortion, they shouldn't have one. The state has no right to remove your level of citizenship from someone because they're female. You know, you can't have less rights as a citizen just because you're a certain gender, and that's what these laws do. And so I think that's a huge struggle that we've fought for, and we have to defend.
What got you activated, Harriet?
Well, literally, what's happening in the States, and I'm following what's happening in the States, there's been several young women who died. These are all women who are young and have their world in front of them, and they're dying because of infection or hemorrhaging. Like, what is the point? What is the objective? There's not going to be a happy outcome through this forcing someone to have a child or not treating them because they've either self-aborted or they had a miscarriage and just making them suffer, watching them suffer. Or there's not going to be a happy outcome in society, and where women are like always under suspicion, or where it's dangerous to be pregnant because something might happen, and the laws that are just imposed don't allow for any level of citizenship, and it's as if a woman has no thought process of her own. Like, whatever she thinks doesn't matter. But when she has the baby, it's okay. She can go raise the baby. But until then, she needs to be governed. You know, it's not right, and so it has to be. It's insulting, and it's very harmful to society. And when you look back through history, every authoritarian society, one of the first things they do as they, begin the claw, tighten the claw of authoritarianism is remove women's rights. And that happened in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, in Quebec, where women were just encouraged to be the trad wife, and that's the expression now in the US, is the trad wife. Give up your rights as a citizen. Don't think of yourself as being anything other than a breeder, and that's not right.
What do you say to people who say it can't happen here?
Well, it can. Everything can happen. Who would imagine that it's happening in the U.S. and with the rapidity that it's happening? It is astonishing. I'm following this every day. In all these states, Texas is the worst. Like that you read about Texas, Louisiana, Idaho. South Carolina, these legislators wanted to make having an abortion a capital crime for which the death penalty could be applied. And today, I think it was today that it was defeated, but it wasn't defeated by much, and it was only defeated by huge involvement of the women's movement, and these are things just terrible. They're making laws that if you use the roads in Texas to travel to have an abortion, you can be charged with abortion trafficking, and therefore you can be they're encouraging people to turning your neighbor kind of thing, or so that people can be prosecuted, and women who have miscarriages have been jailed for having a miscarriage, for child neglect. Like what kind of, all common sense has been thrown out the window in favor of some ideological idea that these things are nonsensical, they don't work, and you can't legislate these things because women have always had to have the need to terminate pregnancies all through history, through thousands and thousands of years, and legislating them never has worked. It just won't work. So
I want to ask you a question about the book and the tone of the book. It's not preachy.
no, it's life.
Yeah.
This is the way life is. It's the struggle to find and figure out what to do within that situation. And
And I also want to ask you about voice and about discovering your voice. I think Leesa, this is a rite of passage, obviously, but she learns that she can think for herself. And that's a huge lesson as well.
Yeah, well, that is a big leap in a child's development when they realize that they can think for themselves, and it's the right thing to do is think for yourself. Jenny is much more bound to her family's thoughts or their ideas, but then it all comes out. she's got a glimmer of her own too, and she realizes that she can't hold everybody to that standard. And that's the thing, is if someone doesn't want to have an abortion, they don't think it's right, they shouldn't. It should be their decision. And society should respect it. The law should respect it. But if someone says they can't do this, then the law should respect that too. We live in a society that has to respect. It's just a multi-layered society, different kinds of people. If someone wants to be religious, they should be religious, not religious, because the law says, or you can't decide that. You can't change what people have going on internally inside them.
I'm going to open it up for questions now, John, knocking at John's door here. And have you been thinking of questions that you might like to ask of Harriet? And if not, I'll carry on, but are there any hands? Yes, there's a hand. And here comes John. Right. Here we are.
Hi. I'm wondering, Harriet, what you would like teenagers of today reading the book to get out of the book.
Well, I'd like them to learn about the history of it, and to realize what could have happened, what could happen to them, because kids don't know about it really. It's just disappeared once, So I would like them to understand that things can go backwards, and so they've got to maintain their rights, fight for their rights. It's not guaranteed that it'll be there forever. Here's
Dorothy.
Harriet knows me because the pictures in the book are the ones that I took, but I'm not going to ask about that at all. In one part of my life, I'm supposed to be a writer. And so one of the things I'm really interested in is how do you mix the reality of Ellen and Suzanne and others into a work of fiction? And where are you taking liberties and where are you sticking to the truth?
Well, research, and the more you research, the more characters shape themselves. The more authentic they become, the more you understand how they lived. So that's how I create that situation, and then you just have them, you have to have them interact with the people, or in this case, I don't have the characters interacting directly with Suzanne or Ellen, but they're represented there. But that's how it is. The more you immerse yourself in the time and in the event, that's how you get your characters. You just try and I personally try and place myself there. How would I have acted? What would I have said? What would I have thought? How desperate would I have felt?
Ellen and Suzanne, how did you feel about popping up in the book?
It brought me right back to those years. The only quibble I could make is there were no patients that left unnoticed. Leesa
Well,
was very lucky.
yeah.
And none of them escaped unnoticed. They were all home to their parents' center, every
yeah.
last one of
It's a
them.
novel.
You do take some liberties. Yeah.
Yeah. I see you, don't worry. And Ellen, what about you?
I don't think I played a role in the book,
Yeah.
only in the political actions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
in the
participated
atmosphere,
in.
yeah. There was a question right over there, John, and then there's some over here too. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, this might be a bit of a ramble. I'm not sure about Harriet's experience at the time. I was a single mom. I was at UW, single parent. And I was hearing all kinds of stuff from, and this is not anti-abortion by any means, but there are some interesting things that happen with women's movements, and it had started with the suffragists. They were, it's often it turns out to be a very white, upper middle class kind of movement that's dominating things. And I was finding, I was hearing that term breeder, which you refer to. So, and it's a pretty negative term to use, and to hear when you're a single mother, and to think that, well, you shouldn't be allowed to have a child if you're single, and you should be, oh, you have this option of having an abortion, so you should do that. And I had a friend who was a writer, fairly well-known writer. We were students at the UW at the same time, and we were both hearing this sort of stuff about, it was people that were indigenous or of other cultures seemed to be denigrated because they had lots of children, and the abortion was seen as the antidote to that all overpopulation in those cultures.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty serious, offensive kind of trend that was happening in that movement at the time. And later I was actually tutoring a friend who was from Iran and who was learning a lot, who was taking women's studies courses here. And she was reading stuff, and I was learning from the things she was reading at the time, actually, about women from different cultures who were criticized, and this is many years later.
Excuse me, can I just,
Who were
do you have a question? Do you,
Yeah, just
okay.
who were criticizing criticizing the movement because it had had this kind of effect of pressuring women of other cultures. And yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Well,
Sheila.
I know, you know what,
She wanted
that's-
me to ask a question.
I'll just,
And I'm just
yeah.
wondering about
Thank
your,
you.
okay, all right, Sheila, I'm getting to it. Harriet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what was your experience at the time, and were you aware of those kinds of criticisms? And I'm sorry,
A
I
little,
haven't
yes.
read the book yet.
Yeah, okay, so I'll just say
And it may be a
this.
little off on a tangent.
Okay, that's
No,
right.
thank you very much. Thanks very
I
much.
was, and that is true, and all those things you're saying, it's a very complicated topic. I didn't have the opportunity to fold it all into to the book, but yes, the movement was in general, you know, more of a middle class and white dominated and all that, middle and upper class, and the people who are most damaged or who suffer most by lack of access to proper health services are people who are marginalized, people of color, women of lower income. So it's a complicated question. I couldn't fit it all into the book.
Yeah.
I tried, but I couldn't.
Other questions? Yeah. John's getting a workout today.
Hi, Harriet. I have another writing question for you because you're a master researcher. And I really wanted to know, do you do all your research before you start on a story, or do you do it as you go? Does it evolve as you come across new paths in your book? And do you plot it out beforehand, or are you more of a pantser where you're kind of writing as you go?
I plot it out beforehand because otherwise I get lost. But I start researching and I think I got it, but you have to keep researching because it is amazing what you uncover. Just keep reading and you will discover new people. You will discover new things that happened at the time or new elements of the issue, and then you can go back and keep working at it. But I always plot it out ahead because otherwise I get lost. Mid novel slump. That's really a bad thing to have.
How do you know when you're finished your research?
You don't.
Okay.
You never finish researching. I keep learning. The other day, someone told me that she was recruited to go parade outside the Morgan Toller Clinic. It's just very interesting. And she said, well, like, what was I doing? I'm protesting my own rights, kind of thing. And so it's just very interesting. And the other thing I was just saying on the question of people who want to reduce the number of abortions or they don't like abortions, the key to do that is through education of young people, about the body and about limits and respect, mutual respect, yes, consent, and also availability, which we have in Manitoba, of birth control for young people, and reduction of efforts to reduce poverty. If people might want to keep their children, they should be able to. And but women, single parent women, are among the poorest families, and so that's a huge issue when you're deciding whether or not you can have a child.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Back to the writing question that you asked. So when you're plotting it out, what does that look like? Did you have a great big sheet that you put stickies on? Or?
Well, what I do is I do it on.
By the way, I know you like a sticky.
Look at this, right?
No, actually, I have some great friends who've given me these books, and I do my research with pen on purpose because it sticks in my head better. And then I'm labeling it so that I can actually go find it, because otherwise I can never find where I am. So this was, but I do it on, and you know what? There's no worry that if you get stuck, that the plot's not working. You can change your outline. You can change your outline, but you got it to go back to and fight with it and things like this, and especially if you encounter new research. But when you start and you set it out, chapter 1, which you think will be chapter 2, you can just write the book from there. You can just fill in your outline. And I did that with my first book. I just filled in, and I realized that I had filled in the outline. And that's that. And you can keep going back. The more you research, you can add it, and then you just adjust the book, like sort of mold it. But that works for me. I know other people who said that they don't care what they're thinking. The blank page is what they need. And the blank page scares the heck out of me. I don't know. Writing is hard. It's really hard. I need an outline.
Any other questions from the audience? I want to ask you. Oh, sorry, Dorothy. Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, John will get you the mic.
I'm just curious, and it might be an indication of, for Harriet, how many people in this room were part of the coalition or doing other things in support of the Morgenthau Clinic in 1983?
Well, we've got a forest of arms here. That's just amazing.
And I'd like to offer a special welcome here to Faggy Feynman. For people who don't know her, Faggy is a force on her own, a wonderful person, and a friend of mine. And she is the wife of the late Jack Feynman, who provided abortions for women, and as part of his obstetrical gynecological practice, and who was shot in the shoulder by a sniper in 1997, November 1997. So anyway, we knew Jack and respected him, and I love him.
This
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah.
it happened. in
It happened,
Winnipeg,
yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Lisa's father. We haven't talked about him at
Mhm.
all. Tell us about him. He's transitioning to a new, he wants to get out of police work and into photography. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so I thought, how can you, photography is a great way to see the world. You can separate yourself from it a little, but you're also seeing something different or something new. And I thought, what could transport this man into another world? So I thought I'd give him a job that is a challenge and will conflict in the story. So he's a policeman, but he's a policeman who's troubled because I'm sure many people here will remember the tragic, the murder of a girl in at the end of 1981. Her name was Barbara Stoppel in December 1981. And it was not only was it awful, and it changed the laws of Manitoba because then you couldn't have one person working alone at night in a shop after that. But it was true, like every time they put a picture of her in the paper, they put her class picture, that she had just had. She was 60 years old. Of course, she was beautiful. And there's this innocent girl whose life has been lost, and they arrested someone and they convicted him, but it was just very controversial. And I remember that when they convicted him and he was taken away, in the newspaper, it said, "I'm the only one who told the truth." And so, because what came out later was they paid off someone to get him to confess, or to lie that he had confessed and all this, and he did not kill this girl. And the person who probably killed her went on to commit other assaults, and it was all sorts of things. Like they had someone, so they weren't going to look further, basically. And it was a miscarriage of justice. His life was, really, wrecked, and he spent time in jail. And here's a policeman, and it happens that he had the evidence, and his superiors won't listen to him because we got someone. There's so many cases of this, and the David Milgaard case is another famous case like that. So I thought I would give them that conflict, but he's looking for an out, and photography is his love, and so.
I found it interesting that he's looking for an out, and yet his wife would really like an out as well. So there's an interesting conflict, and I would say I remember this in my own family. My mother really, really wanted to get back to work, and my father didn't want her to go back to work because her place was in the home. All that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what did she do as soon as they divorced? She got a job.
Yeah.
It took that.
And literally when they loosened the divorce laws in Canada, that's a lot of people divorced.
Yeah.
And there were divorces. The divorce rates went up, and then before it went down, and a lot of it had to do with women wanting to be their own person.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know whether it would come to that.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Did your characters take you a different way?
Yes, I thought that they should go to, well, I didn't mention it, they should go to Kildoran Park and walk around and sit on the bench and work out their differences and realize that essentially they had a love for each other.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, John. I've got another question. Yeah.
Hi, my sister Liz from Kingston, who she gave a shout out to, is watching, and she has a question for you, Harriet.
Yes.
She wants to know how you found a publisher.
Well,
how you find publishers for your books.
It's terribly hard. You have to send it out. And then I had a publisher for my other two books. The editor changed, and that editor was not keen on the story, so I had to send it out to other publishers. And it's luck of the draw. You never know. It's not easy. It's not easy.
And there's another, yeah.
The editor, male or female?
Who's the editor, male or female?
Female.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
You have to have them. They want to need that book at the right time in that it's a business. And then there might be, whether or not that editor is educated about this or likes that topic or whatever. I don't know. So you have to just accept it and go on.
What would a book like this have meant to you and your peers?
Well, it certainly would have educated me,
Yeah.
because there were a couple of girls who got married when they were in grade 11. But I knew a girl who got married in grade 11, another girl who disappeared for a while. So, it would have helped.
It would have meant a lot to me and my peers as well in the 1970s. I told you this on the phone, but I got suspended for distributing birth control and VD literature on the school property. I got 3 days, which, I think that was punishment. Anyway, but a book like this would have meant so much.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful that young people are going to be able to see themselves in this story.
I hope they do.
Congratulations, Harriet.
Thank you. Before we wrap up, I want to say first, I want to say.
Which sticky are you going to pull?
This one.
Yeah, okay,
This
good,
one.
okay.
A huge thanks to John
Yes.
and the staff here. A huge thanks. Huge thanks to you. I just have, so you know, I was at a launch here, and I just walked up to her and I cold called and said, "This is who I am. This is what I'd like you to do. Would you please?" And she agrees. So I thank you for trusting me. I'd like to thank Ellen and Suzanne for helping my business. And to all the people who marched and worked at the clinic, you changed society. And so I didn't do it, you did, and I'd like to thank you for your work. I'd like to give a shout out to someone who might be watching online. Her name is Fran Falzerano. She's a former colleague. She's unable to be here. She was one of the first people to encourage me in my writing, and she's facing some difficult challenges right now, so I'd like to give a shout out to her. And I'd like to thank you. The book is sold every week. It's been on the bestseller list, and I'd like to thank everybody who bought it in advance for trusting me with that they know that I try hard to make an authentic situation on important topics that are important for society. So thank you very much, and thank you everybody for coming.
Here's the signing table, and John is going to tell you all about it. John Taves, everybody.
Thank you so much, Sheila. And yes, indeed, it's a very complex process. Effectively, we'll have Harriet in this chair right over here. There'll be a moment of delirious chaos while some people get in line, some people depart. If I know there will be quite a line due to the sheer number of people here as well. So if you would like to wait and just sit in your chair until a spot opens, please do feel free. That's perfectly all right. You may also feel free to get a copy of the book signed before you pay for it, but please visit my colleagues at the cash desk after you've got it signed. We'd really appreciate it. We have boxes and boxes of the book, so this is not representative of our Zaidman stock. We will replenish as you purchase, and we're very grateful for that. We're so very grateful to Heritage House. I'm going to continue the gratitude for just a moment. So very grateful to all of you for being here. It's an incredible crowd, both in size and in caliber of the humans that are among us. So thank you all for being here tonight and for your attention and for your questions. Huge thanks to Shelagh Rogers for hosting this event, of course. To Ellen Kruger and Dr. Suzanne Newman, of course, for sharing their experiences and their works. And please join me one more time in acknowledging Harriet Zaidman.
Shout out to books first before we wrap up. Armin Weeb is one of the best writers I've ever read, and this book this is his play called The Recipe. And if you didn't see it at the warehouse last year, this is about how women in the Mennonite community dealt with pregnancies that they couldn't keep. So The Recipe is in here. This book just arrived at McNally. It's a graphic novel that it has the history of abortion and women's rights all over the world. It's pretty darn good. I would highly recommend that. And if you want to read something about, this is written by Mark McGuigan, who was the Attorney General of Canada under Jean Chrétien. He was a fervent Catholic, and he writes about the topic of abortion, and the foreword is by Joe Clark. And they both say the law the government has no right to impose personal views, their personal views on all of society. Anyway, it is an exceptional book, and I'll return it to the library tonight, so you can go and put it on reserve. I would highly recommend this book. I read it 4 or 5 times. It's exceptional. So sorry to interrupt, John. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you again so much for coming.